As you might have guessed from that video introduction, the theme of this video is babies, but not those kind of babies. How about baby cameras? Specifically, cameras marketed as babies. There's one camera in here that wasn't really marketed as a baby camera, but it's sort of roughly the same size, and I sometimes think of it as being a baby camera. The one thing all these cameras had in common is that they use Kodak VP 127 film. VP, of course, stood for Vest Pocket, not Verichrome Pan. 127 film was introduced in 1912. At the same time, Kodak introduced the Vest Pocket camera. 127 film was so named because it was the 27th roll film that Kodak had developed. So just think of that. By 1912, Kodak already had produced 26 roll films prior to this. And by the time I came onto the photography scene in the early 1970s, the only surviving roll films were 120, 127, and 620. All the other film formats had just sort of fallen by the wayside, and it was likely because perhaps there were so many film formats that camera manufacturers just couldn't keep up with the never seemingly ending creation of new films by Kodak. 127 film was 4 centimeters wide, while 120/620 film was 6 centimeters wide. So let's clear the decks and take a look at these cameras one by one. Here we have two baby box cameras. These actually are smaller versions of the box Tangor, but Zeiss Icon didn't give them the name Tangor. Well, at least not initially. It's really interesting, the progression of all these cameras. So these were just called baby box, and so you can see how this one actually says baby box right here below the lens. On the box it says box Tangor, and this one, however, just says baby box, and that's imprinted or embossed into the leather on the back. These are fairly simple cameras. They're slightly different. This has a non-focusing front-R lens, and this one has a focusing Novar lens. Now, if you own one of these cameras, the key thing is the viewfinder. By the way, this uses simple frame, wireframe viewfinder. Just peer through the back end to take your photo. The viewfinder, the wire portion, must be raised in order for you to take a photo. This, when pushed down, it locks the shutter release. And presumably that's to prevent you from accidentally taking a photo. Neat little feature. I don't think any of the other, no, because they didn't use, they didn't have wireframe finders, so that's the difference. This was so-called half frame. So it took 2 photos per frame, per normal frame of 127. And I believe instead of 8 photos, you would then get 16 per roll. Let's take a look at the film really quickly. So here's a standard spool of 120 film. You can see the width of it. And here is 127. So you can see how much shorter that is. I believe this is gives you 4 centimeters, whereas the width of this was 6 centimeters. What's different about this, the 127 spool, is that it actually has the spindle, extended spindle on each end, whereas this one, it's either hollow through the middle, or it's cut out with 120. So that's going to be the difference between well, aside from the size, the difference between 120 and 127. Okay, so this was produced from. The baby box was produced from 1931 to 1934. Next up, we're going to look at a Zeiss Icon camera. This is, even though it's marked as Iconta in the catalog, it's called Baby Iconta. And you can see how small it is. So this released the lens bed, or the lens door, I should say. And it just uses struts to hold the lens and shutter in place. This has an uncoated Tessar. My catalog doesn't show this as being offered with a Tessar, but this is the original lens, Compure Rapid Shutter. So that means it would have speeds from 1 second to 1/500th of a second plus B and T. I shot some photos with this, and it has that typical old school Tessar look, which is to say it's very sharp when stopped down, a little bit different wide open. This has a glassless wire finder. I thought perhaps there might be some glass elements in here, but there was really no way to hold them in, and it wouldn't actually close properly. I just don't think there was ever any glass in here. However, if I'm wrong, let me know. We have the Konica Baby Pearl. I guess, maybe perhaps that really should be pronounced Konica. This was produced from 1931 to 1950, so it had it had a very lengthy production run. I believe this is a coated lens, which would make it, you can see there's a slight, ever so slight purplish reflection, which would make this post World War II. This uses a small Hexar lens, a 5 cm lens. In fact, I believe, let me confirm this, I believe most of these are either 45 or 50. Yes, this is also a 5 cm, otherwise known as 50 millimeters. And the Tessar also is a 5 cm Tessar. From the Carl Zeiss standpoint, this was easy to produce because they of course were producing other 5 cm lenses for many 35 millimeter cameras. Now this does use a pop-up viewfinder. These are known as Galilean finders, the ones with lens elements in it. This is a negative and that's a positive, and this one releases a lens door. No, this one's a shutter release. I apologize. And this one releases the lens door. Pop open the back. Pretty standard in size. Film spool, pressure plate. No surprises in there. This also was a half frame camera, so it took, I guess that would be 2x4. 2x4. Just collapse the lens on this. With this camera, I usually will give it a bit of a hand to make sure everything closes correctly. Also, it's best if you reset the lens to infinity when you close most folding cameras. Some of them would reset the lens to infinity before you close it, or some of them would actually prevent you from collapsing the lens door or the lens panel unless you had set the lens to infinity. This one's, like I said, it was not marketed as a baby camera. This is the Kodak / Nagel Valenda. Actually, I have two versions of this camera. Which one is this? Oh, yes, this is the Carl Zeiss version. This one's always a bit trickier to open. I also have one with a Schneider triplet. Here it is. Both of these used pop-up viewfinders. As you can tell, they're identical cameras more or less, except for the shutter and lens combo. This uses a Schneider Radionar, and this one uses a Zeiss Tessar. Both again are 5 centimeters, which is 50 millimeter. What's interesting about this camera is right below the lens panel is a small little badge for the camera maker. This one does not have that. Although this one is marked Nagel, and this one is marked Kodak, which would indicate that this is a slightly older camera, or perhaps this camera was made before Kodak purchased Nagel Camera Works. I think they purchased them, I wanted to say 1932, but it might have actually been before that. Once again, these are small half-frame 127 cameras. And you can see the dual windows. Now the Konica, that camera has a small slide to cover the red window. So the idea was that by covering this, you prevented any extraneous light from entering the camera. And if you notice, these cameras do not have it, these baby box Tangors. They're pretty standard. This earlier version, or what I believe to be an earlier version, has a key for advancing the film. This one has the same key, but on this side it has a small depth of field scale. Both of these were in production from 1932 to 1937. By comparison, let's bring in, this is a Kodak Vest Pocket 127 film. I don't know what model this is. In fact, I'm not even sure when or how I received this camera. Kodak Vest Pocket Model 8. Here, I'll look it up really quickly, and that way we can get an idea of exactly how old this is. Sometimes trying to figure out the dates of these cameras is pretty darn crazy. And one of the real issues with Kodak is that it just made so many different cameras. I mean, like hundreds and hundreds of different cameras. I will look that up and I'll put it below once I find out that information. Finally, we have the premier baby of the model. The premier baby. How about that? And this is the baby Rolleiflex. Well, even though it wasn't marketed as the baby Rolleiflex, it's informally known as by that name. This is a Rolleiflex 4x4. That's its official name. This takes 127 film, as I mentioned. This also has, this has a 60 millimeter Tessar. No, this has a 60 millimeter Xenar lens. So this is the post-war model. This has a coated lens. I was going to say some of them have a red triangle, but no, this one doesn't. Maybe that's the East German lenses use the red triangle. In any case, this is a coated lens made by Schneider. There were earlier pre-war models, and they were all black, and those had a Tessar option, or maybe they only came with the Tessar. Not really positive. So, a bit like the baby box, if you recall, the viewfinder had to be up in order for you to take the photo. So that's our lineup today of baby cameras. I'd like to think that opening montage of video clips, music video clips, was about cameras, and perhaps they were thinking about photography when they created those videos. Maybe not, but I'd like to think that they were. If you like this video, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. And if you'd like to see me cover a particular camera, please let me know in the comments below. Or you can send an email to contact@camera-talk.net. Until the next one, keep on taking photographs.